Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar hosted by 23 Technology on cost-effective VDI. My name is Ian Wyville and I'm Head of Marketing at 23 Technology. Just a bit of background for those of you who don't know us. 23 Technology is an IT support and cloud computing consultancy based in Reading in Berkshire. As well as ongoing daily IT support, we plan and deliver virtualization, desktop transformation and application delivery projects for businesses and organizations throughout the UK. We're excited to be working with thin-scale technology, promoting their products to businesses and organizations in the United Kingdom. And today we'll be explaining 23 Technology's approach to desktop virtualization and the advantages of using thin kiosk, thin I/O, thread locker, and other technologies from thin-scale. Don't worry if you're already running a virtualized environment, as we think we'll still be able to help you maximize your investment and that the webinar will be of interest to you. After all, we understand budgets are tight, and the aim of this seminar is to showcase cost-effective means of delivering all the benefits of a VDI experience. Before we begin, just a little housekeeping. You'll be on mute throughout the presentation, but there is the opportunity to ask questions via the chat function on the console. Just type in your questions and we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. I'll try and get through as many questions as possible. I won't be mentioning any questioners' names, so if you do have a question, don't be shy in coming forward. Just to let you know, this webinar is being recorded. It will be available on the 23 Technology website should you have any colleagues who couldn't make it today and who'll be interested in learning more about 23 Technology or the thin-scale products we're showcasing today. So quick recap of the agenda. We've already done the welcome. We'll be doing a short presentation from 23, a presentation on thin scale, and then a question and answer sessions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Paul Foster of 23 Technology to talk about our approach to virtualization. Paul, it's over to you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Sorry. Good morning, thank you for joining us. I just thought I'd take a few moments just to set the scene and explain some of the projects that we've been involved with, particularly throughout this year, and also to explain some of the reasoning behind the rationale for people to consider this technology and then migrate across to it. I haven't quite got control of the slide here. I don't know if you can move that forward. Thank you. So why consider desktop services and virtualization around this area of your company's technology? There's a common theme that we have found across the clients that we're working with. Some of it's based on legacy approaches to delivering services to users. Some of it's based on looking at ways to improve upon the way that things are being done at the moment. And the three items that I've kind of highlighted here seem to be common across the projects, that particularly this year, that we've been involved with. We've spoken quite a lot to clients about the impacts of shadow IT and the risks, data loss and theft and data sharing from internal users, where they're trying to be more efficient in terms of their day jobs. And I guess to cut a long story short, we're talking about the dangers of shadow IT and things like Dropbox usage. If you look at the opportunity of virtualization, effectively we'll be moving the sessions that run at the moment directly on desktops and laptops and moving them back to a server-based model, whereby the applications and the data are running in the data center and the devices that connect to those are effectively seeing what's going on, and that immediately gives you control and immediately gives you better assessment over the usage of your applications and centralization of data. The pressure that most IT departments are under comes from users, and the usual problems that they have is trying to improve upon the existing services that they're delivering. We're hearing there's a lot of internal frustration, and from a user perspective, it's the speed of logging, it's the speed of the more power-hungry applications, and it's the ability to be more flexible in terms of the way users work and interact with systems. Finally, the opportunity that virtualization of the desktop presents allows organizations to make better use and longer-term use of their legacy investments, but also to bring everyone up to date to the same standard by having one version of the desktop, one version of the applications, and moving away from the refresh cycle of 3 years or 5 years from legacy. Move that forward in. Thank you. So as I said, we've been quite busy this year. The technology that we focus on, just quickly along the bottom, we're reasonably agnostic, so we tend to work with those main 3 vendors, Microsoft, VMware, and Citrix, and then likewise the complementary technologies shown on the right. What this allows us to do is take a fairly open approach to the right solution for customers and make sure that we aren't just ploughing down one route which is going to be restrictive and effectively a cul-de-sac as far as wider adoption of capability is concerned. Typical projects range from, say, 200 users up to 2,000. The sectors that we focus on, we've been particularly successful in housing associations this year, but because this is infrastructure level, it is applicable for most sectors. Symphony, for example, are a manufacturer in the sort of kitchen market. AQA are obviously the examination board that I'm sure anyone who's kids will be very aware of. And with all these projects that are sort of laid out here, we've invariably engaged with them at different stages. But that isn't a problem because there are approaches that we can take to each of the projects where we can add value and we can help ensure that there is success. But like I say, we're happy to investigate and talk about any of the technologies that we've shown in the stack at the bottom. What I wanted to do is just talk a little bit more about the project lifecycle as we see it. And with the clients that we engage with, as I said a moment ago, we're happy to jump in at any of these stages. And the first step, if you were taking this from the very beginning, would be to establish the business case for this. There's a scheme of things that we can run through to achieve that. Once you've established that point, then you can look at confirming that the assumptions that you made are correct. And at each of these, there can be a sort of step on and step off. So it doesn't mean you're committed to the full investment at any particular point until obviously you move into the green zone at the bottom, which is when you approach the deployment. Invariably, with most of our clients, we start off with a very open-ended discussion. And as I've often been told, to get that right, you need to focus on the end points and sort of work backwards. So you need to very clearly establish what the objectives of this, considering that these technologies are. And if it then relates back to one of the items that I discussed in the first slide, then there's a very good chance that we can do something that's going to improve upon the way things currently are. From the discussion, we then start to get more into the detail of the project, looking at the discovery process. We need to very clearly understand the applications, the usage of those applications, and how they integrate with people's processes. Ideally, we want to make sure that the technology we deliver fits in well with the existing support capability and structure. We don't want to reinvent the wheel here or create something that isn't going to be useful going forward. out of that discovery and stage, we can then home in on an appropriate technology. At this point, highlighting budgetary costs, which I know are very important to build that business case. Ideally, we want to do a paper shortlist of the most appropriate technology before we move any further. And I guess coming out of this in terms of an output would be the ability to proceed to the next stage. Step 2 then, and often we would only become involved in a project when it reaches this stage if the client's been able to progress through the first step on their own or independently. In order to verify the assumptions made in the shortlist, most clients like to see and present to the executives at least the technology in action to prove the fact that this will work. And the way we can do that is by standing up a trial. We can involve more than one of the technologies that I pointed out. So say, for example, you wanted to play off the Microsoft way of doing things versus Citrix versus VMware, then we can stand that up for you. The key to this part is to make sure that the legacy systems that are running across the organization are compatible with this server-based computing model. And we have a lot of tools in our armory that can help us to determine that and confirm that that will work. There's also an opportunity to get some early stage feedback from users based on what we can present. The output of this stage is to have a relatively detailed design that we can confirm the costs against and make sure that there is a definite progress beyond this step to the next phase. And again, armed with that design, you can then very much clearly fine-tune everything as you have it. Finally, once the sort of mandate is provided to go ahead with this from the executive and the budget's in place, we can then move into a very clear platform build. We have a very mature process for this, which involves a 10-stage plan. Again, we want to start from the go-live point and work backwards and make sure that we follow that very clearly. And bring together the resources both from our own internal team but also on the client side. To get the rollout to be a successful one, we are very, very focused on the testing side of this. So whether that's stress testing the platform itself with various tools and making sure there are sufficient resources to provide a very good performance, or whether it is to do with getting users involved in the detailed acceptance testing. Getting this right ensures that when we move to the final stage, the rollout, floor walking, thank you, that we can guarantee success across the user community. The floor walking phase, we've learned a lot of lessons around this, and putting sufficient resource in front of the customer and engaging with users is key to getting this right. So just moving on to my final slide then. If I look at those 4 projects that I mentioned that we've completed earlier this year, these steps or these keys, as I've said, to success are common across all of them. And in any case where these have been removed, it has had an impact on the quality of the output. So just stepping through these quickly, by getting involved with the stakeholders at the exec level, using a Prince2 management framework, we can bring those people in, and we can make sure that everyone's engaged and understands their part in the project and what everything's all about. Clearly defining what people's tasks are within this and having a good focus on that right the way through has been absolutely paramount. The usual focus on risks and issues, again, Prince2 methodology that we're using here. The discovery process that we run will flesh these out very quickly, very early on in the project, and make sure they're understood and agreed and handled and mitigated where possible. I've already mentioned the importance of the acceptance testing, and likewise floor walking around when we're going live and making sure that we support that deployment phase. And finally, that I haven't mentioned before, we don't just see this as a project, we see this as being a bit of infrastructure that we're likely to have longer term involvement with supporting, and so being part of that transition from project across to the business as usual phase has been very key, and we understand the need to get the resource there sort of correctly deployed. that's been a very fast whistle through of the projects we've done, and probably 15 years worth of project management experience all bundled into a few minutes. More than happy to talk more about any of these if questions are raised or after this event.
Okay, Paul. Thanks very much for that. I know we had a few problems with the sound at the start, but we managed to save the day and you came through quite clear. So thanks very much. And I'd now like to crack on and introduce Dermot from ThinScale Technology, who'll tell us a bit more about the products and services that ThinScale are offering. Over to you, Dermot.
Thanks very much. My name is Dermot O'Connor. I'm the Business Development Manager for ThinScale Technology here in Ireland. Let me just bring up the first slide here.
You should just be able to move it forward.
That's what I'm trying to do here, just on the keyboard. It's not going. You might move it there.
Okay, don't worry.
Yeah,
no problem at all.
So just a bit about our background. We were formed in December 2012. Basically, we were formed out of the VDI community's requirements and needs and challenges in the desktop virtualization space. And what we did was we brought out a community version of our first product, and it was exceptionally well accepted. And it was the community that sort of helped us tailor that product and take it to being an enterprise version, which we launched the enterprise version of in September 2013. When we look at all of the users between the community version and the enterprise version, we now have over 80,000 users globally. We're selling into every vertical around the world. We're selling into government, education, energy, healthcare, business, finance, construction. This is just a splash of some of the people. It wouldn't be possible to put up every logo of everybody that is using our software. This just gives you a sort of an indication of the types of names, and also gives you the feel of the sort of the globalness of what we are supplying. Our products, basically, we offer simple solutions to complex problems in the virtualization space. It's from the client endpoints with Tin Kiosk, and maintaining consistent virtual desktop performance with ThreadLocker, and optimizing requirements of back-end shared storage with Tin.io. I'm going to go through each of these. Tin Kiosk, a quick overview. Tin Kiosk, the first of the products that I mentioned we brought out in September 2013, is a fast PC to thin client converter with centralized management and deployment capabilities. And basically what it's doing is repurposing your older hardware, giving you savings on your CapEx and your OpEx. So you're basically turning your old PC, it completely locks it down. It is a Windows program, so therefore it will only work on Windows, but it will work on any Windows operating system as far back as XP. It basically extends the life of your existing hardware and allows you to use the older hardware, and then when you're ready for the hardware refresh, you can just move Tin Kiosk over to the actual hardware thin clients that you're purchasing, giving you the same user feel, and also gives you the capability of using our centralized management. It is seamless integration with the key players, Citrix, VMware, Microsoft, and promotes uncompromised virtual desktop access experience. Tin.io. Tin.io intelligently optimizes disk I/O in VDI environments. Tin.io is a very simple, very effective software. Basically, what it's doing is it installs inside the virtual machine. It allocates physical memory and intelligently uses it as disk cache. The benefits here are the IOPS and what people are all booting up in the morning time or powering down in the evening time. So we have seen boot storms reduction by 80% with ThinIO. The key thing about ThinIO is it requires no software change, or sorry, it requires no hardware change or no architectural changes whatsoever. It is purely a piece of software that's very easily installed. It's a next installed type software, and very cost effective. There are other products out there in the market that do the same thing, but they are a lot more expensive, and a lot of them require architectural changes. ThreadLocker, our latest product to be released just September gone, is basically intelligent CPU capping, and this curtails out-of-control programs in a VDI environment where you have a situation where a program or multiple programs are very compute intensive and basically max out all the CPUs that are available. So what ThreadLocker is doing is it's constantly monitoring, and it spots the programs that have gone out of control and are maxing out all of the CPUs, and it thread locks them down to preset by you number of cores. So let's say you set it, you had 4 cores on your box, and you set it to 25%. Then ThreadLocker would actually move or curtail all of those out of control programs to working on one of the cores. When the programs start behaving themselves, ThreadLocker releases them. Now, the beauty of ThreadLocker Enterprise is that what it's doing is it's looking at individual programs. So it's not thread locking down every Excel program. It's not thread locking down every Java program. It's only the particular programs that are actually out of control. It's fast and consistent VDI performance is what it is basically providing by allowing the other cores to be used for Outlook or whatever things other people want to use. Its static processes rules are in use also, and basically a priority readjustment by the administrator is necessary, so you could go in and change that 25% to 50% or whatever. You could change things around or set it up depending on how you want to use it. So that is a quick run through of ThinScale Technologies' current products. I'm here to answer any questions, and if I can't answer them, I'll certainly get back to you with an answer very shortly. Pass it back over to you, Ian.
Yep. No, thank you very much, Dermot and Paul, for some very interesting presentations. I've been getting a couple of questions through during the presentation, so might as well just get on with answering as many as we can. In terms of first one is about things. What's to stop users using Control-Alt-Delete to get back to the local machine? I take it that's a question for you, Dermot.
Yes, that's a very big one. With ThinKiosk, it completely locks down the PC. One of the interesting products in there is our Magic Filter. Our Magic Filter technology is incorporated inside in ThinKiosk, and it passes the Control-Alt-Delete and any of the other Windows keys, or any of the other SAS keys. It passes it through to the virtualized desktop. It doesn't allow it to operate on the actual local hardware. So this is part of the lockdown. It stops people from breaking into the actual local hardware. So it's passing it through to the virtualized desktop.
Okay. Paul, this is a question for you. Well, or I'm sure Dermot will have a view on this as well. What sort of timescale can a VDI deployment be made in? What you were talking about the 3 steps. I was just assuming that we need to know a little bit about what's timescales for those 3 steps.
Okay, yeah, the first step around discovery can be completed quite quickly, depending on how much detail you need to go into. We have some very clever tools which allow us to automate quite a lot of that. But you can also include things like end-user surveys as well. So providing you get that data out and gather it back quickly, and probably within 3 or 4 weeks you can complete the first phase. In terms of getting to a detailed level design, providing resources are lined up quickly, again, that's something that could be tackled within the space of a month. And then the deployment and rollout, I guess typical project life cycles, the minimum would be 2 months to get the quality right from start to finish. Probably realistically 3 to 4 months as far as that stage is concerned, but that is largely dependent on the scale and the diversity of the company that we're working with.
Yeah.
And some of these tasks can be tackled in parallel if you needed to shorten them.
Yeah. Okay. And Dermot, I think it's very clear from your presentations that that your products can be deployed well within a day within the network.
Yeah, but just on one of the points that Paul was making there, we're typically seeing from the time that people go into proof of concept using Thin Kiosk or ThinIO or ThreadLocker to coming out the far end and starting to roll out the products, we do see that at between sort of 2 and 3 months. But when the rollout starts, then again, it depends on the scale, depending on how many they're rolling out, and also the geographies involved, you know.
Okay. Well, while we're talking about scalability, one question is how scalable is ThreadLocker? So I'm assuming it means how many users can we, or the devices can it cope with?
It's totally scalable. There's no limit to it. Can be put onto servers, or it can be you know, where people actually go to ThreadLock. Let's say they have 3, 4, any amount of RDPs, and they can load ThreadLocker and just configure it. It's totally scalable.
Great, great. Okay, well, I'm quite conscious of the time because I like to keep to a half-hour webinar and just keep everybody's attention. So that, I think, is the end of our webinar for the moment. Thank you very much for attending, and we hope we found it useful. As we mentioned, we'll be making a draw for £30 worth of shopping vouchers straight after this webinar. So if you're the lucky winner, you'll be contacted by us very soon. In the meantime, oops, there we go. Here's our contact details. If you have any further questions after the end of the seminar, please get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to follow up on any questions or ideas or projects that you have. Thank you very much to Dermot and Paul for presenting, and for you for attending, and goodbye.